Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, suspended from office.
National Inland Waterways Authority confirms 8 deaths, 38 others rescued in Anambra boat mishap.
NUC refutes report of more than 100 fake professors in Nigeria.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we discuss reforms in the Ministry of Interior.
All right, let's begin by acquainting you with, of course, background history of the Ministry of Interior. It started off, of course, as the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and over time it got merged with the Ministry of Police Affairs, and since then it has been evolving. Of course, today we have 15 ministers who have witnessed the unbundling of some agencies from the ministry to the current 5, until the appointment, of course, of the present Olubimi Tunji Ojo as the minister.
Absolutely clear. The agencies include the Nigeria Immigration Service, Nigerian Correctional Service, the Federal Fire Service, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and the Civil Defense Correctional Fire and Immigration Services Board.
Yeah,
that's the board that oversees the agencies.
Yes, and those are the parastatals that are under the Ministry of Interior. And basically, the ministry provides complementary internal security and other ancillary services within the country, of course, in conjunction with other security agencies. And in 2023, it exploits in the area of passport issuance, transformed, so to speak, the public perception of its services. And if you recall that also last year, that a lot of people had to wait, for months on ending to get their passport. Indeed, my colleague here, Victor, had to do an investigative, report on that incident, of course, that, triggered some form of reforms, really.
Yeah, and as it is today, it may seem that the wait has reduced significantly or to some extent. And there are also plans to automate passport application this month. And there are, however, challenges such as overcrowded correctional facilities, lack of equipment and other facilities for the fire service, and duplication of functions of some security agencies by the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. And so today's Searchlight is on reforms in Nigeria's Ministry of Interior. We welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Victor Azu.
And I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. I welcome you to the program, and it's Tuesday's edition. Just to remind you, as usual, we'll be bringing you the complimentary segments of the program that will include, in just a moment, highlights of the morning news. We'll be looking at business tips this morning, and much later, Chukwudi Okoligbaja will be joining us here to review the newspapers. But for now, let's join our newscaster for today, Zemret, to bring us highlight of the morning news. Hello, Zemret.
Hello, Claire and Victor. Good morning and welcome to the morning news. Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State has expressed belief that the 2023 Appropriation Act of the federal government will fast-track sectoral developments that will change the face of the country for good. The governor expressed this hope while talking to State House correspondents after his meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the State House. Governor Uzodimma believes the solutions to most of the yearnings of Nigerians have been captured in the National Appropriation Act, now waiting for implementation. The governor also pointed out that security situation in Imo State has improved greatly and that his government is working to consolidate the relative peace. Following his victory in the November 11, 2023 election, Governor Hope Uzodimma is due to be sworn in for the commencement of his second term on January 15, 2024. And the Supreme Court has affirmed the election of Hyacinth Alia of the APC as the duly elected governor of Benue State. The five-man panel of justices headed by Justice John Okoro gave the verdict in Abuja. The Apex Court dismissed the appeal of Titus Uba, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the March 18, 2023 governorship election in Benue State. The dismissal followed an oral withdrawal of the appeal of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and his governorship candidate upon being confronted by the Apex Court that the matter was a pre-election matter. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) has expressed dissatisfaction with a judgment of the Federal Capital Territory FCT High Court awarding 100 million naira damages against it in favor of the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN), Godwin Emefiele. Justice O.A. Adeni on Monday, January 8, 2024, fined the commission after he ruled that the commission's detention of Emefiele in the course of his investigation was a violation of his right to liberty. The decision failed to take cognizance of the fact that the former CBN boss was held with a valid court order. Consequently, the commission will approach the Court of Appeal to set it aside. And President Bola Tinubu suspended the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, from office with immediate effect. The President, in a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Ajuri Ngilali, directs the Executive Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to conduct a thorough investigation into all aspects of the financial transactions involving the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, as well as one or more agencies thereunder. The statement further directs the suspended minister to hand over to the Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, and also directed by the President to fully cooperate with the investigating authorities as they conduct their investigation. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has dismissed the following chief executive officers: Mr. Babatunde Irukera, Executive Vice Chairman and CEO, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, and Mr. Alexander Ayola Oko, Director General and CEO, Bureau of Public Enterprises. The two dismissed chief executives are directed to hand over to the next senior officer in their respective agencies, pending the appointment of new chief executive officers. The National Universities Commission (NUC) has refuted news circulating on the social media and some national dailies and television stations that the Commission has just discovered over 100 fake professors in Nigerian universities. NUC says the media reports are fake, untrue, and a figment of the imagination of authors, adding that the happenings is at an unsuitable time when the nation is awaiting the outcome of investigation into the fake certificate saga from universities in some neighboring countries. And the National Inland Waterways Authority, NIWA, has confirmed that 8 passengers died on the unfortunate boat mishap that occurred at Umumu Anam in Anambra West local government area of Anambra State. In a statement signed by the General Manager Corporate Affairs NIWA, Jibril Daudau, the incident, which occurred on the morning hours of Friday, involves a passenger boat traveling from Ida in Kogi State to Onitsha in Anambra State. The statement noted that preliminary reports indicated that the wooden engine boat rammed into a snag on the water channel and capsized with about 50 passengers. And that's it on the morning.
CA. And next On our lineup today is newspaper review. All right, and Chukwudi Okolegbaja has just joined us, and sparkling from head to toe.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chukwudi.
I had a haircut.
Yes, I noticed.
Yesterday.
And you're looking indeed like Chooks the boy.
Thank you so much.
Not Chooks the man.
That's actually the idea.
That's the idea.
How are you, Claire?
I'm good, thank you.
It's a bright morning.
Yes, it's a bright morning.
Bright Tuesday morning.
Yes. Okay, let me quickly begin with leadership. And leadership, has a splash of stories here and there. But the lead story is on illegal detention. Court orders FG to pay Emefiele 100 million. And then, of course, there is the story on the humanitarian slaves. EFCC quizzes Sadia, invites Betta Edu. That story is on page 4. And the riders there, minister suspended to allow transparent probe. That's agency. Edu spotted at Asu Villa. And Interior Minister distanced itself from humanitarian ministry contract. And there are other stories. Let me just take you above the nameplate. Supreme Court affirms Aliyah as Benue governor. And NERC dissolves Kaduna Electric Board of Directors over 125.5 billion naira debt. On the right-hand column, we have all the stories trending. And this one, Tinubu dismisses consumer protection, BPE bosses. Details of that on page 10. And Kogi names Anaje Ohinoyi of Igbira land. It's on page 15. 1 dead, 5 houses burnt in Kano illegal refinery fire. And there are also other trending stories. Let me quickly take this story from the Daily Times now. Daily Times leads with the story also, Edu in EFCC net over alleged 585 million naira fraud. And Nigerian army rejigs posting of 206 generals. Insecurity, NPC excludes 6 Borno local government areas from demographic survey. And 8 die in Anambra boat mishap. Bandits kill 7 in Benue attack. Details of that on page 11. And just trending at the foot of the paper, Tinubu dismisses Irukera Oko as CEO of FCCPC and BPE.
All right, and the Daily Trust is also here, which leads with the story that bandits return to Kaduna-Abuja highway, abduct 30, and it has the rider block road for 45 minutes. Bandits return to Kaduna-Abuja highway, abduct 30, block road for 45 minutes. That's on page 4 of the Daily Trust. That's about the only story on the headlines of the Daily Trust.
Okay, so Chooks the boy. Hello, Chukwudi, are you with us?
Yes, of course,
so
I am with you. Very much so.
Let's begin. We have a very slim.
Look at this. Bandits return to Kaduna-Abuja highway, abduct 30. That's not good news. The last time we heard about them on that very important road was March 2023, some 10 months ago. And now they are coming back in the, I hate to use daredevil, so they don't begin to beat their chest. They are coming back with so much impunity that you begin to ask what could have given them that confidence. Abducting 30, operating for about 30 minutes. A former lawmaker, Shehu Sani, actually confirmed it on his X handle. You know, what happened there. Said one person who's still serving as a lawmaker and one that was a lawmaker narrowly escaped, that incident. So what is it that has happened to the security architecture we had erected there? What is it that happened? What do we need to do? How do we go after them? How do we keep the victims safe? Questions.
Questions.
But interestingly, in that same post on Shehu Sani's X handle, he did confirm or acknowledge that there is security presence more than it used to be, even at this time.
More than there ever has been.
Gentlemen, what has happened is complacency. You put a lot of people there and they go to sleep. Again, we will ask another question. Why is it that the security people on that road, why are they not active? Why are they not proactive? Is it...
You just mentioned complacency.
Yes.
I totally agree with you. We have a tendency to think that when the issue is no longer,
there,
so troubling and all that,
perhaps
it's gone forever. No.
Or perhaps the more they are, the more ineffective a case of everybody's dog is nobody's dog.
There must have been some taken for granted of the situation.
Absolutely.
So it tells you that vigilance is the word all the time.
You must keep up you must be ahead. You're ahead of this.
You're going to find out that with this happening now, they'll all wake up again and they're not going to hear about it for some time. But why should we take a nap? Because that's what seems to have happened. Let me say seems, since we don't have the facts.
Yes.
Anyway,
those in charge of internal security,
they just have
because
to.
this is a matter of internal security now, and we have many agencies, vested with the responsibility
of former head of state was saying that there are perhaps too many agencies, too many people in uniform, yet it doesn't seem as safe. It has upped the game in terms of being forever vigilant and all that. So let us never ever. There was this advert. Let's not make it a one-time call. We have to be vigilant all the time. That's the way it should be.
And I think also the people also need to be vigilant as well. And I used to say it when the former Minister of Information, that's Lai Mohammed, was around. I mean, you could hear, if you see something, say something. I mean, it was a popular slogan, and everybody, if you see something, please, if you notice anything strange within your area, you can call. You will say maybe you don't have the confidence of our security agencies.
But don't rule out the possibility of these bandits because they are there in the communities. People know them.
Yeah.
Threatening them with reprisals and all that. It could be part of why people don't speak up. But at the end of the day, just as you said, Claire, we don't have a choice. Find a way to put out the word. Because your son, your sister, your mother could be involved,
Absolutely.
Among those who take repercussions
Precisely.
For the nefarious activities of these people.
Precisely.
Don't let it happen.
Precisely.
Unquestioned.
Anyway, Chooks, yes. I'm sure you know the story that is the headline, and I'm sure of all the papers today is the issue within the Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation Ministry. And, true to his words, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has taken, an action.
Yes.
Action.
Not punitive?
Not punitive.
The president does not act in the blind.
No. He has taken an action.
The EFCC says we have to recommend that she be suspended so that we can have a free hand in conducting. So it's a process, it's a procedural thing. And I think it's the right thing to do, really, so that she's not breathing down the neck of people who could give information. Relevant information, necessary information to get to the root of this matter.
Or obstructing.
We all find it absurd that money would be paid into a private account. We don't know how they run the ministry there, but it is rather strange. But we always refrain from being judgmental in matters like this to get to know
there are
what
issues
happened.
that when people discuss this matter, and I'm like, the critical thinker, you would ask, okay, fine, administratively, there's been a wrong,
Procedure in doing things,
procedure.
handling
Yes.
these things.
Was the money actually, was the letter actually acted upon? In other words, was the money actually transferred to the said account?
I think
That is
the office of the accountant general was saying something like money not disbursed.
I heard so too.
I read
Yes,
it. I read it
so too.
somewhere there.
I read so too. So if the money was not transferred, now what action did the accountant general, on seeing that request, and from her wealth of experience, knowing that this is a wrong, administrative procedure, what did she do? Did she advise the minister?
You see, Claire, you have a very good point here. We are not roping in the
Yes.
accountant general's
But at
office.
least you
no, no,
didn't
The
give
point
the go-ahead.
is, in an establishment, you actually check me just as I check
Exactly.
you.
That checks.
And we check our management as well.
Precisely.
You
Yes.
know? Look, let us just get to know that we are all involved in these matters. It's a systemic thing. If anything happens to the system, somehow it gets to you. So you need to be very, very vigilant and to put out the word when things are going the wrong way. So I really
Yes.
appreciate the point you made, Claire. Very important point there.
Yes. So
Did
we-
he advise, hey, what's this? Is this how it should be? That's not how we do things here.
Precisely.
What could have
But
caused
they
it?
did, perhaps subsequently, when it had come to the open, she did advise that, on the contrary, this is what you should do.
When it had come to the open? No, we don't know. Anyway, these are the questions that I
No,
asked.
she just asked questions.
Yes, these are the
Again,
questions
we're not
I
indicting
asked.
anyone.
Exactly.
We are saying
know.
this is not exactly what one would expect.
Yes.
Procedurally. But then we're not finance people and all
Exactly.
that. So
Okay.
let's
we
let
leave the rest. We
investigation
leave the
happen.
rest to the EFCC.
Exactly.
And I mean, and wish the minister all the best in this situation. And there were also other stories that trended, Chukwudi, and other people, private companies have been implicated in one way or the other in all of this. And again, it goes to show that when we hold these retreats, because before the ministers were named, they went for a retreat.
Yes.
What do they learn in this retreat? These are some of administrative procedure.
Again, you and I don't know what they learn.
No, it's supposed to be administrative. These are the things. This is how. These are the things you're told.
Claire, a friend of mine says, and I've read this up somewhere. You don't really change any adult. You don't change. Adults don't change their behavior. What you could do is to make it difficult for an adult to engage in what he or she wants to do.
Absolutely, and that's where
That's it.
institutions
matter.
come in.
Institutions
The strength
matter.
of the institutions.
There are things that the IGP would not do. He knows he's a very powerful person, but because there are institutions checking his activities,
and there will be consequences.
that is how you run a system. When you hear UK, US, and all that, they're not better than us morally.
institutions.
It's just that they won't get away with some of the things they want
Let's
to try.
also take this accountability,
Yes.
this holding our leaders to account. Let us take it to the National Assembly, our legislators, our representatives. Let's hold them accountable as well, because this is what we are saying. This is what we are saying. If you see something, say something. Raise the alarm.
Yeah.
Raise, blow the whistle.
I'm almost clapping for you, but I'm going to pull back a bit because
Raise
the
the whistle.
accountability we are talking about should be in the mosques, should be in the churches, it should be in the village, it should be in the collection of electricity bills in the villages where you don't have meters. Look, even in my village there was a furore over. So it's everybody. Accountability
Yes.
is something we owe everybody.
That's what I'm
everywhere.
saying. You didn't get
all
me.
right. I think
Just
we'll
hold on,
have to.
Just hold on. You didn't get me. What I said is, now people blew the whistle
Yes.
at the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, and that's why this all came up.
Okay.
So let us also do that.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And if we do, then our leaders will sit up.
Yes.
Our leaders will sit up. Anyway, Chukwudi, thank you very much. And That does it for today.
And did I say you look more boyish than ever today?
You want me to remove the glasses and maybe look, choose the boy alone. But I'm feeling very high, actually.
High in what? All right, if you've just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the Network Service. And, well, today we'll be looking at some of the parastatals under the Ministry of Interior. And this morning we'll beaming a searchlight on, of course, the Nigeria Immigration Service, the NIS. So let's take a background report before we commence our conversation.
With the inception of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, series of changes were promised under the renewed hope, with efforts to renew and reform different sectors of the economy, making them at par with their global contemporaries. One of such is the Interior Ministry.
All right, I think we have been interrupted by that glitch there. We'll see if at some point we could go back to that. But for now, we have guests in the studio, and it's time to welcome the Controller General of Immigration, Mrs. Caroline Wuraola Adepoju. A pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, we have also joining us here in the studio, Francis Enobore, who is a retired controller of the Nigerian Correctional Service and former National Public Relations Officer. It's good to see you. You look fresher than you were in uniform.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
And via Zoom, we have been joined by, okay, the Zoom is not ready. No?
Yes, please go ahead. I yield the floor to you.
Oh, all right. CGI, let's begin. You are just months in the saddle.
Yeah.
What has been the situation? What have you seen that you need to correct?
Okay. Thank you very much. A lot of innovations have come into place since I came on board. When I came on board, the first thing I did was to declare a state of emergency on our passport administration, knowing that Nigerians have been going through a lot, facing a lot of difficulties, both at home and in the diaspora, when it comes to passport processing. And this is not because the previous leadership of the ministry or the Nigeria Immigration Service have not been doing their best. It's just that what was on ground then was not, was not just perfect. And like everything in life, we looked at it and we tried to see how we can improve on the service delivery. First and foremost, our service providers, I met with them. They first improved on the supply of passport booklets, and we continued with that. But a major breakthrough came with the advent of the Minister of Interior, Dr. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo. We leveraged his sound background in technology to enhance our service delivery. He sat down with us and with our service providers to review the entire process. And we came up with a new process of the complete automation of the passport application process. The purpose of this, the purposes are numerous. One, we want to reduce human interference in the passport application process, because people, you know, say that they are being extorted. Usually, I want you to know that many Nigerians do not just contact immigration officers when they need passports. There are other people, there are touts and all this. And of course, we cannot rule out that there are some bad eggs that tend to extort people when they are applying for passports. So we looked at it and we said, let us remove or at least reduce to the barest minimum human interference when it comes to passport processing. That's where we went for complete automation of it. So you can apply for your passports online completely. And now, to make it more seamless, the new process in place is that you can upload your breeder documents. Before now, when you apply for your passport online, you print your payment evidence, your application, then you put your documents, your breeder documents. Those are the documents to support, like your birth certificate, like your marriage certificate if you are doing change of name because of marriage and other things like that. You take them to the passport office. Now you can upload all these documents online and they will go into our system, we'll process, and you'll be able, we have a way of verifying the authenticity of these documents, and then we will process the passport application. That is one. I have said it to reduce human interference in the application and also to reduce the timeline. You know, a number of people have suffered undue delay. We have tried to make sure that this one is out of it. And
does that eliminate the biometric capturing?
Thank you so much. We are coming to that. Like my honorable minister said, I think on a program yesterday, these are coming in phases. The phase one now is that you can upload your breeder documents, including your passport size photograph of a specified some specific
cover pages.
Yes, thank you so much. You know, the passport ICAO compliance specifications. Okay. You upload that on the online, and then you will now go on the date of your appointment for your biometrics for now. But come next month, we are looking at deploying the contactless biometrics, whereby you can also, you know, online submit your biometrics, so that you will have very little to do with, you know, our offices. All we want to do at the back end, check all your details, compare them with the data bank we have with NIMSI, and then do the verification of these documents. Then we'll be able to produce your passport and even send them to your given addresses. It's a new process in place, and it came live yesterday, and a number of people have been able to make use of this.
Sounds too true too good to be true. Honestly, I keep our fingers crossed. But let me talk about passport administration. You know, like Victor and I, you know, did say earlier on, some months back, it was hell, you know, getting passports. Some had to wait. In fact, we had one of our colleagues here who had applied for, you know, passport, and almost 7-8 months, you know, he couldn't get his passport. And the reason, you know, usually given is that, you know, first of all, the booklet, you know, was not available. Booklets were being imported, and you know, the inflation and the cost of foreign currency and all that had made it impossible to procure those booklets. Are we still importing booklets for our passport?
First and foremost, I must let you know that the issue of booklet supply has improved greatly. Our service providers and technical partners, they have been supplying booklets of over 200,000 per month since we came on board, and we reviewed this with them. Prior to now, I must be honest with you, we were owing them. We were owing them, and it was very difficult for them to have access to these important materials. But the Minister of Interior got the intervention of the government to ensure that we are able to defray some of these liabilities to help our service provider, the suppliers of these booklets. And also, you will notice that there has been an improvement in passport processes now. Why? Because we have increased the number of our passport production machines.
Okay.
Yes, even our enrollment machines we have increased. You know, all these things came on board because we did a thorough review under the leadership of the president, of the minister. You know, we did a lot of review, and we sat down with our service provider to look at the loopholes, and we try to straighten them. What we have done, like let me just restate it, we have been able to defray some of the liabilities. Yes, so our service providers have access to fund to be able to supply more booklets, and we also procured more production machines. So
and you're doing 200, you said?
Yes, per month.
Per month.
The service providers have been able to produce to supply, as a matter of fact, yes, over 200,000 booklets. You know, so.
But we are still importing
Yes, I must let you know that the materials, the quality of Nigerian passports, the Nigerian passport is highly. The security features are really sophisticated. The security features of the Nigerian passports are really, really sophisticated, and at least for now, we are importing the passport booklets.
All right, let's quickly put you on hold, Madam Controller General. And just while you were speaking, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, who's a security risk management expert, walked in. Dr. Kabiru Adamu, thank you very much. You walked in the nick of time to catch, of course, Madam Controller General speak. We also have joining us via Zoom from Enugu, Dominic Asogwa, retired DCG Immigration. Thank you very much, Mr. Dominic. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
All right. Let me get now to, while Dr. Kabiru Adamu settles in, let me get to Mr. Francis Enobore. I know that we can't talk about the Nigerian Correctional Service without talking about welfare for inmates, and of course without talking about the overcrowding of facilities. Where are we now in terms of the situation in the correctional facilities? How much overcrowding do you have?
Thank you very much. First, let me say that there is hardly any prison across the globe where you don't have this issue of overcrowding. What is actually of concern to custodial management is the calibration of inmates behind bars, talking about those that are on pre-trial detention versus those that have been convicted. That's where the problem lies. Yes, there is still that issue of overcrowding, no doubt. But I want to quickly say that the present administration under that is the Ministry of Interior under the leadership of Dr. Ojo has started well, if I may use that language, by championing a very worthy cause of decongesting the overcrowded custodial facilities. Recall that very recently there's this move he initiated, bringing in friends of the nation, if I may use that language, development partners, support groups. He was able to raise well over 500 million, I think about 580 something million, to give freedom to over 4,000 persons that were held behind bars. So to a large extent, that has reduced the number of inmates in custody. But what I would want to see is the sustainability of the process. Because you mentioned something that welfare versus overcrowding of the city. I tell you, there is hardly anything that has to do with welfare, training, reformation, rehabilitation that will make any meaning if the custodial facilities remain overcrowded. It will completely make travesty of anything, any intervention you want to, bring about. That's why I said that the system has started well by pursuing a course of decongesting the facilities. The sustainability is what matters.
Okay.
Let me just before we move away from Mr. Enobore, I remember the former Minister of Interior, Gwene Rauf Agrigbeshola, when in one of the events he held, he I think it was a meeting where committees were set up to forge a national security policy and evaluation and monitoring framework for the country. He said something about the main problem bedeviling the correctional center. According to him, it's not just internal insurrection, but the external bandit attacks. That was a major problem, with our correctional centers. Are we? Have we gotten over that yet?
Well, yes. We are making progress. Let me use that language. We are making progress. We are not where we were. A lot of things have come on board. A lot of reassessment, strategizing, put in place. Bringing in both, just like you said, both internal and external influences to see where things can be done better to minimize or eradicate the issue of external attacks on our facilities. You see, you can still not divorce the issue of overcrowding from this security issue we are talking about. Because in an overcrowded environment, it becomes extremely difficult for you to monitor what goes on there.
Even if the centers are not overcrowded and they are remotely located without perimeter fencing, talk of before you talk of the adequate security personnel measures, it amounts to nothing. Yes. There are part of the issues, and you were here. We raised that. Kingsley was here. Was that some of those centers are remotely located where access to them, is very difficult, and some of them are also do not have, they're just open bare. So is there any step towards addressing those challenges?
You see, some of those locations you are talking about, those ones that are located far into out of urban areas. Yeah. If you look at custodial management anywhere, it should have ordinarily provided added security measures for those locations. And I'll tell you the reason. When you have those locations, it means you now have adequate space for buffer area, to create buffer area. And if you have buffer areas that will give you different layers of security, it means you are going to have what follows next is to have adequate personnel and the needed arms and ammunition. Then don't just, without relying on that alone, talking about the physical perimeter fencing, and I want to correct that impression. There is no custodial facility that is located in remote area without custodial perimeter fence. There is none. The only areas where we don't have perimeter fence is where is farm centers and the one we have in Kakuri. Excuse me. Those areas, they normally we send convicted inmates there, and we have never had any insurrection from them, not even external attack, because of the caliber of inmates that are kept there. They are all convicts. They have nowhere to go. They go to the farm on their own, work, and they come back with minimal supervision. So we don't have issues with those ones. Where we really have the issue
It's congestion.
is congested environment, number one. And then number two,
Dr. Adamu is here.
Yes.
Yes, he's a risk management expert.
Yes,
so.
I remember the last time we met,
Yes.
we also had that very robust discussion, and we talked about the different layers of security that you need to put in place. You need to be able to deter, you need to be able to detect, you need to be able to deny, delay, and then defend your facility. So each of these layers, what have we done? Number one, there has been a significant improvement in, as I know, in providing added features on the perimeter fencing. If you go to some of these locations where we have hardened criminals, you see CCTV cameras, you see concertina wires, you see there's ongoing effort to add.
Are they functional, the CCTV? Because because in some no.
Dr. Kabir
all I can say is that there are new features that are coming up now, so it will be unimaginable. So that, something that is just recently installed is not functioning. I don't have that information. So
Okay. let me bring in Dr. Kabir Adamu. Now, before I get to Dr. Kabir Adamu, just to say that we had invited the Minister of Interior. He was supposed to be on set, and it was not until minutes before studio time that he sent in words that he won't be making it. And so we had planned to make this all-encompassing when it comes to the Ministry of Interior. But Dr. Kabir Adamu, help us situate the place of the Ministry of Interior in Nigeria's security architecture as a whole.
Thank you very much. Not assuming the position of the Minister of Interior, which I can't, but I've been fortunate to interact quite robustly with the ministry by virtue of Executive Order 13 that the President recently institutionalized. And so I have a very good knowledge of the reform policies that are within the ministry, those that are currently being implemented and then that are being envisaged. For context, I think there are about 4 major organizations that are being supervised by the ministry: Immigration Service, the Custodial Center, the Fire Service, and then the Nigeria Civil Defense. Now, if you look at that, it will be very clear to anyone who is being fair that there is no ministry that has relevance for internal security like the Ministry of Interior. All of these agencies and departments that we've mentioned are almost significantly focused on internal security. The only challenge that I can see, and with all sense of responsibility, is the fact that the policing system is a little bit isolated from the Ministry of Interior, especially if we consider the fact that the policing system, the Ministry of Police, as it were, is the primary agency for responsibility for internal security. So to that extent, I can say that there is no ministry that is important when it comes to internal security like that ministry. And I will start by commending the current leadership of the Ministry of Interior. Some of the changes that has been introduced has really moved internal security, as it were, forward. One of the things that the presidency did is to move NIMSI back to the Ministry of Interior. And that this is in fulfillment of one of the policy directions as contained in the Renewed Hope agenda, that is to harmonize our national identity system. So now NIMSI is embedded within the Ministry of Interior, and that means that desire that the immediate past government had to get a single harmonized national identity system is being, as it were, achieved by this move of having NIMSI. And I walked in when the Controller General of Immigration was talking about the correlation, as it were, between her database. When people apply for passport, they depend on NIMSI, as it were, to authenticate some of the information that has been private. So that's the kind of synergy we're hoping to see, and I think it's been achieved. Ease of obtaining documents, including the passport, especially the use of modern technology, I think it's been progressed. Well, it's not yet Uhuru, but that progress is being made. One of the key elements, also as a way of policy direction, I'm sure we all monitored it not too long ago when the Minister of State for Police Affairs mentioned that there is going to be a presidential directive to withdraw all police from VIPs. Now, not many of us consider the fact, now if they are withdrawn, who is going to take over that responsibility? It's most likely going to be the civil defense. And so the ministry is positioned in such a way that it would take over certain responsibilities, including improving internal security. So these are some of the things that we're monitoring and that we hope going forward, especially with the pace that we're seeing the current minister pursuing some of the reform agenda within that ministry, would help improve internal security. I've spoken, even though peripherally, regarding the correlation between the Ministry of Interior and Ministry of Police Affairs. I think it's a big, huge gap within our national security architecture. I'm hoping that somehow there will be a bigger and more warmer handshake between the two ministries, so that internal security can be improved. But overall, we're seeing an improvement in the way the ministry...
Can you quantify the improvement in internal security? And I asked this, you talked about Executive Order 13, which of course has to do with improvement and coordination. And if you look around now, there's palpable fear amongst Nigerians, especially those within Abuja and environs, about attacks, and these are happening daily. Earlier on, during our newspaper review, we talked about what could have happened. The Abuja-Kaduna way, for instance, used to, for 10, 11 months, it was safe to drive. Now it's no longer so. And we were looking, okay, maybe some people have gone to sleep. Some of these, security agencies vested with that responsibility may have gone to sleep. So is this 7 months a shorter time to begin to evaluate, impact of some of the reforms that you talked about?
It's not as simple as that, Claire. And I try to be as frank as possible.
And that's why we always like it, Yes.
Thank you. Yes, the Ministry of Interior has some structural challenges that it will be very difficult to hold it responsible for internal security at the moment, even though its role is critical and important. I mentioned the fact that we have a Ministry of Police Affairs that is actually separate from the Ministry of Interior, and it shouldn't be.
But the Ministry of Interior is supposed to come out with policy, and we do have a national security policy. Do we now? Because
we have a national security strategy. We have a national defense policy. Now, the role of the Ministry of Interior in the national security strategy is just a minute component of it, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Yes, it has a responsibility that that should be carried out, especially by the immigration, given the role that immigration plays, especially in border management. And there is room for improvement in that area. I'm not disputing that fact. the civil defense also has a critical role to play, especially in the protection of national infrastructure. But the bigger body that has a greater responsibility is the police. And unfortunately, the police is not being supervised by Ministry of Interior. Another challenge, which we must talk about, is the role of the road safety, that incidentally, under our current national security architecture, is in the presidency. And then the other one is the customs, who we know with all sense of responsibility, several times I've been in policy meetings where customs will tell you they are not a security department, they are a revenue generating department. And despite the fact that they have a role in security, a critical role actually in security. Why am I bringing this up? The national security architecture, that very vague word that we use a lot, is a little bit convoluted at the moment. And so it would be unfair to hold the Ministry of Interior responsible under these current circumstances. I hope the 10th Assembly is listening to this, because they would have a role to play in looking at this. This is not something that a minister can discuss. It's a bit above even the level of a minister. It requires...
Sorry to interject, Kabiru, because what happened to the initiative during President Buhari's tenure, where different committees were set up, about 7 of them, to look at the various aspects of security management within the Ministry of Interior, i.e., I mean, everything was supposed to come out as a policy, not a strategy paper, as a policy. I don't know, would you have any information on what happened, whether reports were submitted, recommendations made, and probably
unfortunately, I don't have that information. I know the committees were set up. I know the president spoke about his desire to implement, especially the Orosanya report that talked about the delineation of functions of certain agencies within government. But why it wasn't implemented, I honestly don't know. Do we have a need to implement those things to ensure that we strengthen the capacity of the ministry to provide internal security? I think we have that. One of the things that worries me, again, not putting the ministry on spot, yesterday a lot of persons, both in conventional and social media, were quite excited that the president took the initiative to suspend the minister because of alleged fraud. But I worry that as a Nigerian and as someone with this number of years in security, why are we prioritizing money over human lives? If you look at what happened in Plateau State, about 200 persons or more were killed. The Fulanis came out to say about 350 of them were killed within 3 months. So if you add that, we're talking about 550. Claire, not one person has been held accountable for those deaths.
I think because you were on this program where some decided, I think reports claimed that some persons had been arrested. I think about
eight persons.
8 persons had been arrested.
8 persons. But my point is, if we can suspend the minister for quote and unquote diverting about 500 million, how much? If you quantify 500 plus lives, how much would it come to?
Anyway, that's by the
it's relevant to our discussion in the sense that these are internal security issues. And the point I'm trying to make is that each organization has a mandate for certain elements within that national security provision. And where there is a failure, somebody needs to be held accountable.
All right, let's get now to Nsukka via Zoom, where retired DCG Dominic Asogwa has been waiting patiently. Retired DCG, we thank you for your patience, and I'm sure with that you have also had the benefit of listening to every other person in the studio. Now you are a border, a migration management expert. You've had significant experience in this area. Do we have a sense of what our migration management as a nation looks like? And you look at that as it concerns also border security.
Thank you so much for this program. And I will just go straight to the point, especially as it relates to border management, because migration generally is huge, starting from the passports, which my boss already mentioned as per the reforms, to the boarding of passengers and or traveling of people from different places, to border management and control of people within. That is going to the internal security that Kabir Adami just mentioned. So it's all encompassing when you talk of migration management. But I thank you that you tailored it to border management, where I sorry, the issue. Yeah, the issue. But sorry, I had I had a call. The issue there is not about the structures. The issue, oh God, the issue is how are these structures being maintained. I headed Semeboda before I came to head migration management as a controller. When you talk of migration management, like when you talk of border management, you discover actually that NIS, Nigerian Immigration Personnel, are working practically with nothing. At Semeboda, when the former president commissioned Semekrake Boda, I took them around. You discover that Semeboda is more of a commercial center than a border area. So we should look at the infrastructures, the possibilities of having a delimited border, having buffer zones, so that security agencies will be able to see who is coming and who is not coming, and who is doing what and who is not doing what. But in our own structure, you discover that we are all just moving up and down. So it's a big challenge to border security. And you discover that presently we are not talking of e-border, this border, the other border. Have we developed infrastructures at these border areas that we take into cognizance and or consideration of the e-border coming up? The answer is no. The infrastructures are not there. How are we taking care of these officers in terms of welfare for officers? If you see an average immigration officer and or the infrastructure where they're working at the border areas, you will be shocked that the place is a border area. I could remember when I was in charge of border management, I sent some of officers to Katsina, to Jigawa and other border areas. And so many of the border posts converted to checking points. That's with rope because of lack of infrastructure. So we can't be talking every time of improving border management when we actually know that the infrastructures are not in place. Just like my boss mentioned in terms of improving passport reforms. We're talking of improving passport reforms, but we're not talking of Nigerians, making Nigerians to understand and or to know the need to use ICT to process their interest and or request. So if you are talking of reforms generally, and we are not talking of improving the officers so that they will be committed to the entire project and the program of government, then it will be difficult. If the CG there, my boss, may tell you, each senior officer, is nothing to write. The government should look at the personnel first. If they are good, there won't be any need for all these improvements. Improvements will come naturally. They are talking of service providers.
Let's just put you on hold for now, and hopefully your network will become more friendly when we return to you. But let's come back now to the Controller General, Mrs. Caroline Wuraola Adekboju, and I'm glad that the issue of passport administration, I'm happy with the reforms so far taken. I'm sure Nigerians would also be pleased with those steps. But let's now look at an area that Victor talked about, which is another aspect of your responsibility, border management. I'm wondering if you've taken an unscheduled tour to some border posts.
Thank you.
And observed what goes on there. I did a research for a study, and my findings will amaze you. Personal findings will amaze you. I just show the transactions that go on between and among the different security agencies at the various posts. That's one. Then secondly, we have, if not about 2,000 unmanned posts across the country, maybe about 1,800 and something, or about 1,900 unmanned posts. Our brothers from our neighboring countries take advantage of the ECOWAS protocol and circumvent our posts. I know you talk about personnel, and all that, but like Dr. Kabir will always say, security has gone beyond just using humans. What plans do you have, to address some of these issues?
Thank you. Broadly speaking, the statutory responsibilities of Nigeria Immigration Service are categorized into two: migration management and border security. Now you want me to talk about border security. You mentioned your findings about shoddy dealings that are being perpetrated by the different agencies present at the borders. I want you to know first and foremost the nature of the Nigerian borders, the contiguous nature of our borders. When we go back to history, Africans never had a say in the partitioning of the continent. By so doing, people who have the same culture, ancestry, tradition, language, they are just separated artificially. Nature provides what they are, natural borders. For example, if you are moving from the southwest to the southeast, there is a different change in the language. Igbos do not understand what Yorubas say. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just giving you an example. But here in Nigeria, in the southwest, our immediate neighbors, in Benin, they speak Yoruba. In the north, everybody from Chad, Niger, they have relatives on this side of the divide. And then the border environment is a peculiar environment. The people there, because of most of the times, these border communities are rather remote. They need the presence of the government there to engender in them patriotism. The presence of the government needs to be felt more in the borders to engender in the border community patriotism. Some of them have no access to good roads. They don't have water. They don't have light. Because of the remote nature of most of these borders, some of the time they enjoy such facilities from the neighboring countries. So they find it difficult to really, associate and to, that government presence is very important, one. So
How does that help to manage, to address the issue of irregular migrants taking advantage of the porosity of our borders?
what we can do, you see, migration is as natural as breathing to human beings. Is in the nature of people to migrate. And migration can be advantageous. What you don't want is to get the bad people in. Migration is not bad because it can benefit the sending nature and the host.
Yes, that's why I said irregular migrants.
Migration.
Yes.
You see, what we refer to as irregular migrants, they are the people who are coming without the requisite papers,
yes,
and then probably using the unrecognized routes.
Precisely.
You see, what we do is that our borders are being patrolled. They are being patrolled, and when we get people, the ECOWAS protocol actually, like you have said, allows people free movement. The only thing is they must come in with their identification documents, and they must use recognized routes. So when people try to circumvent all those, and we are able to get hold of them, we refer them. We either refuse them entry, or we refer them to our recognized entry point, which we call control post. So to make our work easy, we need the support of the government. The government presence have to be felt in all these places, and that is what. Then the Nigerian Boundary Commission, they need some work to be done there. There are some places where it's very difficult for people to identify the boundary between Nigeria and the neighboring country. We need the presence. We met with them some time ago, so that work needs to be done. Then number two, the vision of Nigeria Immigration Service is to be modern, effective, efficient, well-trained, and motivated. We are trying by deploying technology in our work. Presently, in our borders, we are deploying surveillance equipment that will be relaying real-time information to our command and control center at the headquarters. We have them here, to which we can easily respond when there are maybe infiltrations. We are particularly bothered about bandits and all those kind of activities that are threatening the security of the nations. So we are deploying those security surveillance equipment, and they are in place now. We are going to deploy them to a number of places, which I may not want to disclose for security reasons here, but we'll be getting real-time information on the activities around our borders to be able to, see what we can do to prevent the entrance of people who can constitute
questionable
themselves.
characters, yes.
Yes, thank you. People of questionable
Is that a time frame for the deployment of these?
It's in process, and we are making progress. The work is ongoing. But it's something that can take maybe another year or thereabout. But meanwhile, under the leadership of the Minister of Interior, we are looking at building more forward operation bases. Yes, within 40 kilometers of each other, of one another, so that we can deploy more people to these borders. When they patrol, they have places to rest. We are doing that, and we are improving on the provisions of work tools and logistics. We are buying more patrol vehicles. We are also looking at deploying area surveillance equipment, at least in the land borders. And we are training our personnel. For now, my colleague mentioned the e-border, which we are introducing to presently. The pilot program is at the airport. We are deploying the e-gates there so that it will facilitate passenger clearance. When that is successful, we will now go to our major land borders. But for now, what we are doing is to train our personnel, capacity building, to recruit more people, which we are going to deploy into the borders. You know, the borders of Nigeria, the land is expansive. It's over 4,000 kilometers. And the coastal area over 800 kilometers. So we are the lead agency in the border management. We also work with other agencies, especially now because of the security challenges that we have in various parts of this country, even the military. You know, we work together. But we are also doing everything we can to ensure that we fish out the bad eggs. And you asked me if I have ever paid an unscheduled visit to the border. Yes. Last year, I was in Sokoto at Ilela border. And I have a deputy Comptroller General in charge of border management. I have directed him to do some research and map out a number of places where I will be visiting this year. Even Dr. Olubumi Tujiojo has agreed to accompany me so that we can go for on-the-spot assessment, you understand, of these our borders. We want to see the condition under which our personnel work so that we can meet their needs. We want to see the provision of office accommodation, residential accommodation. We want to know their needs, both in terms of manpower and in technology. All these things are ongoing.
I hope the NTA will be well mainstreamed so that we will have a better documentation of all this process. You know, and I'm sure, Victor, you have a question. The border management is very critical because it is true that those porous borders, you know, that small arms and light weapons are smuggled into this country. Please go ahead, Edwin.
Yeah, it was good to hear the CJI talk about building more forward operation bases. I know that, you know, in the time of one of your predecessors, Mohammed Babandede precisely, he did a lot of that. You were DCJ at the time. He did a lot of that, and that may give me a sense that that wasn't sustained in the immediate past, which could have escalated or at least improved that situation beyond now. But I'm just wondering, Midas was also launched some years ago. How much of Midas is in play in what you do today?
Midas is Migrants Information Data Analysis System. It is a device which we use in collecting migrants' information. You know, we have a database. You know, the essence of data is when we get them, we analyze to enable us plan. They give us an idea of the volume of the people coming in, where we deploy them. That is one. Then number two, we are able to know the identity of the people that are coming in. You know, especially they are useful when there are people of interest. You know, maybe you have the names of some people that you are on our watch list. When they come through our Midas, we are able to, you know, flag them. Do you understand? They are not, you know, they help us, you understand, and to identify people of interest and to help us gather information. But in terms of also deterring undesirable elements from coming in, that is useful, but we also need boots on ground. That is why we are improving on what our predecessors have created. As for the forward operation basis that the past administration was able to create, yes, they are there, they are being maintained, but surely they are for us to build upon. We need boots on ground, as well as deploy technology to aid in our work of border management. So the things we do there, we are training personnel, we are deploying them, we are providing logistics, and we are trying to go there, like I said, to have an on-the-spot assessment of the other things that they will need to make their work easy. But it is very important that we have the government's buying in. The government's presence have to be felt in our border areas to engender patriotism in the people there.
Okay. So we pause here for a break, and when we return, we haven't forgotten Zoom. We'll head back hopefully to Dominica Sogwa there in Nsukka. Please stay with us. So this is Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA, and we've been talking about reforms or reform in the Ministry of Interior, of course talking about parastatals, and which Immigration, Correctional Service, and other experts have been trying to help us to deal with. But let's head right back to Nsukka, where retired DCG Dominica Sogwa has joined us via Zoom. Retired DCG, you were making a point earlier before we got a bit disconnected from you. So tell us what's the situation. Good, you haven't been retired for too long, and so I'm sure you're still in touch with both the service and the borders, because that's your passion, that's your area. What is the situation at the moment? The CGI has said, well, we need boots on ground, but a lot of people talk about technology these days so that you need fewer boots on ground.
Good. Thank you again for this opportunity. First of all, we have to train and retrain the personnel and encourage them so that they will work in accordance with the government policies, especially as it involves welcoming people coming into the country and those departing from the country. If you go through Ivory Coast, through Ivory Coast Nigerian corridor, from Ivory Coast to Ghana, Ghana to Togo, Togo to Benin Republic, then to Nigeria, you will discover that from the French Francophone and Ghana that I mentioned, you hardly see any checking point on the road. But when you enter Nigeria, somebody mentioned that. When you enter Nigerian border, you see routine of checking points from semi-border to mile two, over 75 checking points. Why? Personnel are not being taken care of. As I said earlier, when you come to border management, effective border management, personnel are not being taken care of. From NIS to other security agencies, they do collaborate, they do cooperate, they do interface. But you ask yourself, why is it that from Côte d'Ivoire to Benin Republic, we don't have checking points? Then from Nigeria from semi-border to mile 2, you have over 75 checking points of different units. So the leadership, the government should do something to reduce that. And it discourages direct foreign investors. They don't use that corridor because of this. So that is a critical area in border management. And why it is so is because officers are not well taken care of. Let us use semi-border as a point, as a case study. It's very simple. That it happens everywhere in the whole country, like same way, in all the border areas. So, and it's not only immigration. It's not that they're not doing their job very well, but when you don't encourage them, definitely the tendency is that they will do one or two things, that will make them to stay afloat. If you go to semi-border, there's no infrastructure. Officers almost sleep in their working places. There's no barracks. The barracks we had there, I know that was during the time of one of our retired comptroller generals. We tried to put up one or two structures for officers to stay in. But go to there. You guys are journalists. You people should be able to help government to actually look at these things and know profile solutions. Understanding from us is okay. Hearing from us is okay. But then you people should be able to do a holistic assignment to identify those challenges that bedevil security agencies. And it mars the intentions of government to strengthen security architecture in the country. The government may have good intentions, but how are we actualizing that? What I'm trying to say in effect is that, be that as may that you talked about technology. Technology is not, people are to man that technology. So if you are hungry and you are told to man a technology that worth millions, the tendency that the person might leave it, might abandon that technology, and it won't work. They will tell you that we are from here, we're seeing everything, we're doing everything. Are they working? Those boots on the ground, as the Comptroller General said, are needed, and they have to be reinforced, they have to be encouraged by strengthening infrastructural base at the border, and also by paying them their allowances, so that they don't do what government may not and or will not like. And the first thing we have to do is to reduce drastically the number of checking points from the Nigerian corridor. When I was in Semeboda, a Canadian came and said he's not going to come to Nigeria again because of the experience he had on the road. I begged him, and begged him, and begged him. It's still the same thing. So why should we, as leaders, not be able to do things the way it's supposed to do by telling government that this thing cannot work this way? We are all Nigerians. Ask anybody, call anybody in Nigeria, in Lagos, and they will tell you about my true border or Côte d'Ivoire, Nigeria, border corridor. It's same thing in Katsina, same thing in other places. I said it earlier that officers are not well taken care of. That is a critical area. I retired after 35 good years as a graduate officer. I know all the things happening in Ministry of Interior and Immigration Service in particular, other services that work with us. Everybody's crying, say, check the records. Average deaths of Ministry of Interior officers, that is paramilitary agencies, is on the increase. Why do they die immediately after retirement? Because they weren't taken care of by government that they served for so many number of years. And it's still same thing. And these people, seeing the number of deaths of other officers that retired, definitely will not do something that will encourage government policies. So that is a critical area. Identify it, improve their welfare, and we'll see how it will work. The Comptroller General is doing everything humanly possible to bring officers to work in accordance with laid down rules and regulations. But a strategic mistake we are all making is welfare of officers, especially immigration service. They don't have accommodation at the border areas. They don't have logistics in terms of vehicles to patrol the borders. They are very determined in terms of training. I can say that we're not. Go to these border areas, you shed tears, but it's true. And some of you know it, some of you, the journalists there. So why are we talking about things that we know that can be improved, that can be changed? It is just a question of making government to understand that NIS as border management, as border managers, need to be strengthened. Under Section 2 of the Immigration of the Immigration Act, where our jobs were spelled, how are we doing all these things? Every time we are talking of service providers, there are service providers at the border, service providers at the passport office, maybe service providers as we go to work to do the entire work, and so in collaboration with other security agencies, like as you said, somebody mentioned the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. We are talking of area border control. Is it possible? Are the security agencies cooperating? Will the Army allow you to control let me not go there because that's a security issue. At the appropriate time we'll discuss it and we'll try to understand ourselves. But that collaboration, that synergy, the security agencies need it more. So they do understand that they're working for the same purpose. Somebody mentioned that the customs carved out from the Ministry of Interior, police carved out from. So you have a lot of contradictions.
Okay, Lieutenant DCJ Asongwa, I think you've made your point. I understand where you're coming from because you worked in that area and for a long time, and so you have first-hand experience, you have first-hand information, and I hope that those concerned will be taking all of this on board. But let's get back here in the studio and head back to the Nigerian Correctional Service as domiciled in the studio at the moment. Now, I do know that when we talk about the congestion of correctional facilities, one strategy that Nigeria has tried to adopt is to build mega custodial centers across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. 3,000 capacity that is. I know that the one in Janguza is the only one that has been said to be completed. I don't know if it is completed, or just partially completed, but I know it has been inaugurated. I hope so. I wasn't privileged to be there, so I'm not sure what is inside. But what is the situation with the 5 others? The one in Abuja is also there.
Yes, talking about the 3,000 ultra-modern capacity custodial centers, those are some of the innovations that the management, thought about with a view to reducing the congested facilities, especially in urban areas. Like you said, that of Janguza is already up and running. The one in the Federal Capital Territory here is also, it has progressed significantly, at least as at the time, as at 2022, when I retired from the service, work was still going on there. The one in Bori in River State, that time they were trying to initiate the foundation laying and all of that. I think there is one that is earmarked for Southwest. I don't know the status now. But essentially, I think what we need to do, which is, we can be tied to what I said earlier, that the progressive approach of the Honorable Minister of Interior, we need to sustain it. And sustaining it, we mean multi-sectorial approach. To start with, apart from custodial sentencing, there are alternatives to custodial punishment that the Nigeria Correctional Service Act of 2019 has clearly prescribed. But how much of those alternatives are we using? Community sentencing, probation, binding over, parole. So we are not using them yet. So we need to begin to galvanize effort amongst the men of the judiciary to begin to exploit this area. Let me tell you something. When we talk about overcrowding, it's not as if Nigeria is overlocking its citizens. No, it's far from it. What is the population of Egypt? Egypt is just about 102 million. But they have 120,000 persons behind bars. South Africa, the same thing. Yes. But 67% of them are convicted. The reverse is the case in Nigeria. So this is what makes part of what makes it difficult.
Very valid point you have raised. Very, very valid points you have raised. And I also remember, we really don't have much time. That's why I'm trying to interject. I also remember that one of our very beloved sister, the actress who, flouted, one of the rules some time ago, was also committed to community punishment, sort of. And yes, and she served it, with some sense of dignity, and finished it. And I think community policing, parole, these are things that we also, need to implement to be able to decongest. But what about the 750 naira per day meal? Is this still what it is? Because things have changed in the market.
Well, as far as I know, 750 naira per inmate per day is still what the law says should be paid. I don't know if there will be a change tomorrow.
For breakfast or for lunch?
Please, Dr. Kabir Adamu, please speak to us. I mean, the correctional center and all of the, why is federal government building? We've been talking about this. I remember Kingsley would always, question why, federal government is the one building, correctional centers. Why are states not taking up that responsibility? What is the role of states, in also reforming these centers?
And even private
yes, and private enterprises.
Because of time, let me just bring in this aspect to our conversation, the role of the National Assembly. Most of these things are policy initiatives that are either captured in one or the other reform agenda. Like in the case of the custodial centers, I know there is a reform policy that has been, commenced upon, but the implementation is a challenge, and I think that's the major issue here. So the National Assembly, especially the committees that have responsibility for interior, there are different committees. They need to look closely at some of these reform initiatives. It's a little bit late, but hopefully we have 2025, 2026, and then 2027.
Better late
the
than never.
point I'm trying to make is in the budgetary provisions. And I'm very delighted in the last interaction between the ministry, MDAs, and those committees, some critical issues came up. You recall when the Chief of Defense Staff alleged that terrorism is being financed from our custodial centers. It was during one of those interactions. So point I'm trying to make, National Assembly has a role to play in that regard. There is a point that Dominic made that I would quickly want to, I would say, clarify. Yes, we're complaining about the welfare of personnel, but that is not an excuse for corruption. It shouldn't be. And I think, and I'm very delighted that we have the controller here, is a case of the chicken before the egg. If welfare is bad, and quote and unquote, like Dominic said, officers are trying to help themselves, it is wrong. The more they do their work, the more revenue will go to government coffers, and the more government will be able to provide for their welfare. But if they help themselves, then that revenue will not go to government, and it will affect us. I think we need to make that very clear. We're not encouraging any officer, any official.
And I'm not sure that's what he was saying.
I think Dr. Kabiru, we should just encourage government or relevant agencies, to take up the welfare of all of these security, staff very seriously. It's very, very important, if they are to do their job,
I know that
yes.
the Tinubu administration, as part of the Renewed Hope agenda, has several elements of that. As an example, there is going to be a provision of improved welfare for frontline officers.
Okay.
That is contained in the Renewed Hope agenda. So what point I'm trying to make is, if the revenue is being siphoned through different avenues, then government will not be able to do that.
I agree, but let me ask CJ. I know she has some plans for this. We have run out of time almost completely, so it's just in a minute or two. Introduce us to your 6-point agenda. And I say so because at some point later, when we will have you, you'll be able to tell us a lot about it. But just introduce us to it as a background for when we have you to talk about them.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, my 6-point agenda will be based on the, like I told you, 2 broad areas of our service. That is the border management. We are going to do everything we can to ensure the welfare of our personnel. The welfare of our personnel is important within what is available to Nigeria Immigration Service, because we are not responsible for payment of salaries. But their allowances, the due allowances, we will ensure that we pay them. The welfare of our officers. I have been able to improve, like to assist in the area of commuting within the city, like giving them vehicles, buses to reduce the cost of transportation. Then we are also going to lay emphasis on training of our personnel. Training is very important in capacity building. We are doing that. The training will also involve both even the top management, so that we can do everything we can to ensure that we do the best in our service delivery. And then the passport administration, we're already on that one to ensure that passport administration is seamless. Then the agenda is also to strengthen the borders. We deploy men, more, and technology into our border management.
CJ, like Victor said, this is supposed to be an introduction.
So when we have time to talk about it.
We will host you, independently to speak more on your agenda for the Nigerian Immigration Service. Caroline Wuraola Adekbojo, Controller General, Nigerian Immigration Service. We're very glad to have had you today. Thank you very much for coming.
It's a pleasure. I'm very delighted. I'm grateful to be here too. Thank you.
Francis Nobore, retired Controller of Correctional Services and former National Public Relations Officer, Nigerian Correctional Service. Thank you very much for joining us. You don't look tired at all. You don't look tired at all. Yes, yes. Dr. Kabri Adamu, Security Risk Management Expert. I told you, you're not going anywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And let me also appreciate Dominic Asogwa, retired DCG Immigration, who joined us via Zoom all the way from Nsukka in Enugu State. We thank you very much, sir, for also finding time to join us. All right, let's now quickly take some foreign stories.
Pope Francis has addressed ambassadors accredited to the Holy See, delivering a comprehensive overview of global challenges and the escalating violations of international humanitarian law. He mentioned a plethora of ongoing worldly tribulations such as the Israel-Hamas conflict, migration issues, climate crisis, the immoral production of nuclear and conventional weapons, but also the complex socio-economical and political issues plaguing the African continent. From Angola to South Africa, a third of Africa is poised to participate in elections in 2024, with significant issues at stake in at least 18 countries entering an election year. Among these nations are Mali, Chad, and Burkina Faso, grappling with the aftermath of coup, provided the junta leaders in these countries adhere to their commitments. He said the fate of several African economies hang in the balance, as reported by various news outlets. For some, the current debt crisis serves as a crucial turning point, offering a window of opportunity to enact substantial reforms and fortify fiscal resilience. Conversely, a largely contingent is anticipated to fall short, implementing only the essential reforms necessary to maintain financial support from entities like the IMF, the World Bank, and other donors. The year stands as a critical juncture for these economies, where strategic decisions will shape their trajectories in the post-debt crisis landscape.